Howdy everyone! Today I'm testing out one of the first standard zoom lenses that came out for Sony's full-frame E-mount mirrorless cameras, the Zeiss branded Sony FE 24-70mm f4 ZA OSS. It's for Sony's full-frame or aps-c mirrorless cameras, although its zoom range, starting at 24mm, means that really it's most suitable for full-frame camera owners. If you have an aps-c camera, you'd be better off with a similar and much smaller Sony Zeiss 16-70mm f4 lens. Anyway, this not-so-little beast for full-frame cameras has a pretty basic zoom range of 24-70mm and an unambitious maximum aperture of f4, and yet it costs an astonishing £800 or around $900 US. The image quality this lens produces had better be out of this world to justify a price like that. Still, the Zeiss label is on there, so here's hoping. Let's look at the lens itself then. Considering that modest zoom range and maximum aperture, it's a bit bigger than you might expect, which is disappointing on a mirrorless system where small sizes are aimed for. It's made of metal and weighs a bit over 400 grams, so it's a little bit hefty, but also reassuringly solid. The lens mount is made of metal, but there's no extra weather sealing gasket. The copy of the lens that I'm testing here has seen a bit of use, but its zoom ring still turns very smoothly, so that could be useful for video makers. The lens's focus ring also turns smoothly, with just a little weight to it, and it's electronically coupled to the lens's autofocus motor. The autofocus works quite accurately and silently, but it's not especially fast. This lens also features optical image stabilization for image stabilization on any camera. If you combine the lens with a camera which already has in-body stabilization, then you'll get a little extra efficiency. Here is some footage without stabilization, and here it is turned on. It's not the most rock solid I've ever seen, but it certainly works nicely enough. The lens's filter size is 67mm and it comes with a short metallic lens hood. Overall, the build quality is fantastic really, although I was hoping for something a lot smaller and lighter, considering the fairly limited zoom range we're dealing with here. Okay, image quality. It really is a lens with full-frame camera owners in mind, so I'll just be testing it on my full-frame Sony a7R II with its 42-megapixel sensor. At 24mm and f4, the lens is fantastically sharp in the middle of your images with good contrast. The corners of your images are a little bit soft. Stop down to f5.6 for a small improvement there, although even if you stop down to f8 or f11, the corners are never very sharp. Let's zoom in a bit then to about 35mm. At f4, sharpness is very good in the center. The corners are a little more convincing at 35mm now, showing pretty good sharpness and contrast. Stopping down the aperture to f5.6 or f8 though doesn't really bring any improvements. Finally, let's zoom all the way into 70mm. At f4, image quality in the middle is a bit soft. Yes, that lens is focused properly here. Image quality in the corners is really disappointing though. Again, this really is the sharpest image quality I could get out of the lens. Stop down to f5.6 for improved but still weak image quality in the corners, although the middle of the image is now very sharp. Stop down to f8 for perfect image quality in the middle, but still really weak image quality in the corners, unfortunately. So, this Zeiss zoom lens performs really well at wider angles, but it hits a real stumbling block at 70mm, at least my copy of it did. Alright, let's see about distortion and vignetting levels on a full-frame camera. Your camera will normally correct these, but if you shoot in RAW, you can see the reality beneath the corrections. At 24mm, we see barrel distortion that's really very strong, even for a zoom lens. With the aperture wide open at f4, we see pretty serious darkness in the corners. At f5.6 they're a little brighter and a little better again at f8, although that vignetting never completely goes away. Zoom in a bit to 35mm and already the distortion has flipped into quite a noticeable pincushion shape. Vignetting is still quite strong also. Zoom all the way into 70mm and that pincushion distortion is totally unleashed. Vignetting in the corners is strong again, which remains at f5.6, but it's largely gone at f8. So this lens is clearly under-designed when it comes to distortion and vignetting. This lens can focus down to about 40cm. Other zoom lenses can get a little bit closer than this. At f4, the close-up image quality is very soft, with crazy colour fringing, depending on where exactly you're focused. At f5.6, there is some sharpness there, but contrast is low. At f8, we see some very good sharpness now. Let's see how this lens works against bright light. If you look past the raindrops on the picture, sorry about that, then we're not seeing too much in the way of flaring artifacts, but we do see quite a loss of contrast when bright lights are in the picture. Finally, bokeh. With this lens's maximum aperture of f4 and fairly wide-angle zoom range, you won't really be getting very out-of-focus backgrounds in your pictures here, even on a full-frame camera. When you do get them, the quality of those out-of-focus backgrounds is generally a little bit rough. The bokeh is a little messy looking. Overall, in my tests, the Zeiss 24-70mm zoom lens had some real issues. Poor image quality at 70mm, wild distortion levels and heavy vignetting. Even the quality of the bokeh was a little bit gnarly. The lens is absolutely not worth its price. I would slightly prefer to use Sony's 28-70mm kit lens, which is capable of noticeably sharper images. Let's hope Zeiss can re-release this lens one day with better optics, as Sony's full-frame cameras are badly in need of some more decent standard zoom lenses.